I mean, look, I think at the end of the day, students are looking to acquire as many relevant skills as quickly as possible so that they can, I guess, fulfill the American dream, which now is to become a Silicon Valley darling, or at least that's what people assume it's what it's like to be an entrepreneur. The reality of entrepreneurship, of course, is a little bit different. It's really hard to get a business off the ground. It takes this concerted effort that most people are not willing to put in. So the ones that end up being successful are the ones that...
I'm Andre, and this is the Speak Your Life podcast, where we talk about everything as it relates to education, careers, values, mentors, and anything to do with purpose. We do this one impactful conversation at a time, whether it's solo dolo with yours truly or our amazing guests to share stories, industry insights, encouraging words, and calls to action that can help you get closer to your why. Become a part of the Speak Your Life community by subscribing today to the podcast and following us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Speak Your LYFE, because life without your why is meaningless. So with me today, I have this dynamic duo who they basically have been doing life together literally since birth. Yes, they're twins, and both are econ and finance graduates of Bentley University. They are successful startup specialists and have mentored hundreds of entrepreneurs, are uniquely associated with the prestigious NYU, and now are co-hosts of their podcast, The Mentors, where they share stories and help aspiring business owners get to the next level. Welcome, Sergei and Vadim.
Hey, Andre, thanks for having us. Yes, you got it right. We have been roommates since day one.
This joke. Don't listen to any other podcast with us because I think we say this joke every time.
We got to use it every time. That's all we have. That's all we have.
All right, guys, let's hear it. For those the people who don't know your life story, let's get that in 5 minutes. How about that?
Sure. So yeah, our names are probably a little bit weird for most people because we're not born here. We were born in Belarus and emigrated to this country when we were 9 years old with our whole family. I guess we can kind of fast forward to when we already knew English and got to college and realized we wanted to be software engineers, only to change our minds about 10 times, and then eventually, obviously, deciding on economics and finance, as you mentioned there early on. So since then, we've actually been, I would say, career changers. So we've done everything from work in finance to sales engineering, product management, business development. We've worked on our own startups and have been parts of early stage and growth stage startups, both in Boston and New York City. Since then, we've kind of evolved, I guess, because of that, and got an opportunity to work in the education space as well. So, Sergei, a couple years, I guess I'll let you speak, Sergei. You have a voice too. We do sound the same.
We sound the same, so it doesn't actually matter. But yeah, I'm on the venture side now, so I'm a venture investor at the NYU Entrepreneurial Institute with the Innovation Venture Fund here, where I coach and mentor entrepreneurs at the university through our programs and also invest in some of the most promising ones here at the university. Prior to this, I was at Venture for America running their entrepreneurship programs. And yeah, we love working with early stage entrepreneurs. We ourselves have been early stage entrepreneurs multiple times over, failed many times, have had some successes as well. And now we love paying it forward to other founders and helping them bring their ideas to life. That's our life's passion.
Yeah, and it's part of the reason why we got into the education space. I'm a professor at NYU and SUNY Purchase teaching entrepreneurship and management. Our father and mother were both in education. My dad was an education reformer in Belarus, in lower ed, but we, I guess, always thought we would somewhat follow in the footsteps and kind of fell into education over the years. And so, yeah, that's, I guess, our story in a nutshell in 5 minutes.
Yeah, wow, we appreciate that. And yeah, so I definitely can relate on the educational side. Like, my mom was a teacher for about 30 years and just retired last year. So definitely we have that connection at least. And so so tell us more about your experience now as an NYU adjunct professor and Sergei as a venture investor for NYU. Share those unique experiences that you guys have with the same university, but just in your own different ways.
Sure. Well, higher education is actually changing a lot right now and evolving a lot as well. when I was in college, I briefly considered becoming a college professor, and when I realized I'd have to go to school for a bunch of years, get my PhD, basically be a career academic, I kind of stepped away from it, thinking that I might become a professor later on in life in my 40s and 50s. But as it happens, I'm fortunate enough that the education space is evolving because people have different needs. They're realizing that you need a certain set of skills when you get out into the real world that you can apply right away, that can be transferable, that allow you to kind of de-risk your career. In other words, make sure that if industries change or go away, if there is a recession, you effectively have the skills to handle any situation and have the ability to take on whatever job opportunities are available at any given moment. And because innovation is continuing to expand at a rapid rate, because there are now jobs becoming available and becoming invented essentially at a much faster pace than ever before, education has to evolve to keep pace. And so I got an opportunity to develop and teach a course simply because there's been a renewed interest, or I guess a growing interest, in entrepreneurship, in learning entrepreneurial skills, specifically in higher ed. And colleges and universities are looking for practitioners to fill the gap, people that have experience in the field that can then directly teach those skills to students within the university. And so I actually got an opportunity to develop and teach college courses earlier on than I thought, simply because the model changed. Now higher education institutions are prioritizing not academics, but practitioners for these specific disciplines. And so I think it's going to continue to evolve, but it's been really interesting to see how NYU, SUNY, and other organizations are reacting to the change in demand and needs from the workforce and people that are just in school.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that some universities are doing this successfully and most are not. Most universities don't know how to teach entrepreneurship, but they're trying to figure it out. NYU, I would say, I think is doing it in one of the best ways. We actually have an entrepreneurship center where I work that works with every student that wants to start a company, whether it's just a dream and idea or something that they're actually putting into action. And so we sit in a unique place where, at least in my role, I get to see entrepreneurs of all types. Yes, I get to invest, which is fun, but I would say this job is a lot more fun than a standard venture capital job, just because I get to work with founders, even who are not necessarily raising venture money or ever will, but they're starting amazing companies, and we have a way to support them here outside of just venture capital. And working with students is pretty exciting, just because students have ideas that others wouldn't, and they have the naivete to pursue them even if they're hard, which is what you want in entrepreneur. So we really enjoy working with people from the very early stages, even if it's just an idea, to figure out, how do I get that first step to making a business a reality? And that's really even what our whole podcast is about, the mentors. It's like that first year in business. How do you get your first couple of customers? How do you get advisors, investors, all of that? That's really the hardest part in the early days. That's really what we specialize in.
Yeah. Well, and so with that being said, what would you say would be some of the, I guess, shared characteristics that you see across the board for people who are looking to start businesses like here at NYU? Some characteristics that you notice that are just, I guess, shared amongst many people.
Are you talking about from the student's perspective?
Yeah, from the student's perspective.
I mean, look, I think at the end of the day, students are looking to acquire as many relevant skills as quickly as possible so that they can, I guess, fulfill the American dream, which now is to become a Silicon Valley darling, or at least that's what people assume it's what it's like to be an entrepreneur. The reality of entrepreneurship, of course, is a little bit different. It's really hard to get a business off the ground. It takes this concerted effort that most people are not willing to put in. So the ones that end up being successful are the ones that realize that the real education comes from applying what you're learning immediately when you become aware of it. And so I would say from the student's perspective, sometimes it's a lot of they don't know what they don't know. But the ones that are able to separate themselves from the pack are the ones that quickly realize that once they acquire a certain set of knowledge, or base minimum set of knowledge, the only way to go deep is to put it into practice right away and experiment. I mean, that's what entrepreneurship is at the end of the day. It's a set of educated guesses and experiments that you can run for as long as possible until you figure out a business that actually generates enough revenue to support you and the people that you work with.
Yeah, I would say the people that end up being successful are always the ones that care more about identifying a problem worth solving than they are married to some dream or idea that they have that they think should exist without, any validation. If they do have something that's a dream, then they go out and prove whether there's demand for that or not. But it's the folks that really are willing to put sort of any fear that they have behind of actually testing something, going to talk to people, right, getting that validation, doing the hard work. If you can put that fear aside, those are the people that typically end up succeeding. And I think, you hear the word perseverance, but in practice and entrepreneurship, what that means is that if the lows are really low, you're able to remove yourself from that and say, okay, that didn't work. Now I'm going to try and figure out the next thing. And most companies fail because people give up instead of trying to figure out how to make it work or how to find an opportunity that's actually worth solving for working on. And so the people that have that persistence are the ones that come out ultimately with successful ventures, we find.
Yeah. They say that a lot of businesses, most businesses fail within the first 3 to 5 years. Like 90% is kind of crazy. But speaking of jobs and things like that, and before you guys became entrepreneurs, what would you say were some career changes that you've had? I don't know, you said you worked a little bit in finance, or tell us more about the different career sets that you guys had before leading up to becoming entrepreneurs.
Yeah, so we followed a path that a lot of people do. Your parents and people that love you want you to have a secure career and to follow a certain path that is safe. And we did that for a little bit. We studied finance, and so we decided to get jobs in finance to, again, I guess, kind of provide that padding and make sure that we were on a career path that could be fruitful financially. And within a few years of being in finance, we realized that version of it is not something that we were interested in. Funny enough, obviously, Sergei is a venture investor now, so we are back in finance, just the other side of it. But the way that we backed into roles within the financial field that we actually like is completely different. So after the jobs in finance, we wanted to get into tech. We were surrounded by entrepreneurs in college. We tried to start a couple businesses then as well. Some of them made a little bit of money. A couple of ideas completely flopped. But we knew that was exciting for us. And so while we were both in finance, actually, we had the same exact job out of college. That's why I say we decided after passing level 1 of the CFA exam, Chartered Financial Analyst exam, that we did not want to become investment managers. And so startups was the natural next step, since we wanted to get back into an exciting realm around innovation. And within startups, we knew that there were really one of two things we could do. We could work on the sales/customer acquisition side or on the product side, right? You're really either building the product or getting customers for it. Those were the two main functions, especially early on, but even as a company involves. If you think about any role that's within a startup, it's typically either operational or customer acquisition focused, where you're supporting the business or getting revenue for it, or you're actually creating the product, that good or service that somebody needs. And we knew that it's much harder to acquire computer software skills to build product, even though we did have somewhat of a CS background, having pursued that major early on in our careers. But that sales is a skill that would always be needed. And that's one thing that we always tell people. It's a career that we both pursued. We had several jobs in sales. We can obviously go into more depth with that. But that was the right decision, I think, that we made, because getting that skill early on gave us a transferable skill that could apply to almost any industry and many jobs even. So my next job after sales was sales engineering, which was essentially technical sales. And you don't get that job unless you have customer facing experience. Same with business development roles, even product roles to a certain extent. So I would say for us, sales and going into that direction, acquiring that skill is a really important decision. And we recommend that to anybody that doesn't know what they want to do. It's a good skill to pick up, even if you don't think you're good at it. You can develop it.
Yeah. I mean, we've both had a few careers, and I'll say that, I mean, we've been in the job market for about 10 years since we graduated, and we probably switched careers 3 or 4 times. I think the way we've been able to do it is by getting experience, the sort of a different new type of experience while we're still in one career, to be able to level up and leverage that experience to get into the new thing. So when we wanted to go from finance to sales, the way that I got the sales job is I was able to point to a startup that I started in college where we sold our car, and we did cold calls and tried to generate sales that way. That startup didn't succeed, but I could say I did cold calls in college.
Yeah.
So I can probably figure out how to do sales for you. For Vadim, he ended up working for our cousin's startup for free after work, making cold calls from 5 to 8 p.m. To the West Coast from the East Coast, so that he didn't have to eat into work time, and he just offered our cousin to work for free. So it was a no-brainer for him, even though he didn't have experience. It's he doesn't care if he can teach his cousin how to do some sales after work and maybe get some free sales out of that, free revenue out of that. So we figured out how to leverage those free or low-paying opportunities on nights and weekends, or even our own projects, to then level up and do the next thing. Same with sales engineering, right, Vadim? You taught yourself, I think, basic HTML and JavaScript, and we put together some WordPress sites. We were trying to start another business, and that's another thing that I'll say is that any business that you start, it doesn't even matter if it succeeds. You're going to learn so many skills for that you can leverage it to get another job. So that's how we got into more technical roles, is we built product ourselves. Didn't matter how successful it was. If you can get users for a product on a minimal budget, that's going to be attractive to some companies. Yeah. So that's how we leveraged to get into product roles. We got into venture because we started companies and leveled up to mentoring at accelerators and then running accelerators, and then that gave us the credibility to get into venture capital, which then gave us the credibility to become writers. And now we write for Forbes and Harvard Business Review because we started creating content for ourselves, and we could point to a portfolio of good content. So there's always a way to get into a new industry if you can figure out how to get very valuable experience in a short period of time that you can point to that's attractive to others and credible to others. Always a way. You don't necessarily have to spend $100,000 going to school or grad school just to change careers.
The BBC reports a U.S. workers' online study said that nearly 70% agree public speaking skills are critical for success at work. Maybe you are a student looking to become a prime candidate for that internship, or might I say full-time position. Or maybe you have already been in the job market for some time now, and you just want to stand out amongst your coworkers looking to get that raise you feel like you've been passed up for too long now. Go to speakyourlife.com/private-lessons. That's speakyourlife.com/private-lessons. Again, that's speakyourlife.com/private-lessons. To become a better communicator tomorrow by signing up today. Yeah, and I definitely, I can at least say that I've had that experience of sharing that entrepreneurial mindset with my brother. Growing up, like as kids, we had our own lawn care service and car washing business in the neighborhood, and we were those kids who had the professional equipment and undercut all the other guys who were more quote-unquote professional. And so we had that experience just growing up, and even though we've had many failures, ups and downs and things like that, but it was such a good experience, and that's one thing that I can relate with you guys on that sense. But and that kind of leads me to my other question of, like, how did you manage to just do business together? Because I know there's so many families that, they're close together, but when it comes to business and money, oh no, that's not even an option. How do you guys manage to be able to work together, be brothers, and be loving, and also just be about your business in the sense of, like, you're treating each other like business partners, but you're also realizing the importance of your relationship?
Well, I think we're in a little bit unique situation because we are twins, identical twins. We've worked on a lot of projects together. I mean, literally from school projects to obviously entrepreneurial ventures since college. And so, I would say that it's really subjective. A lot of co-founding teams actually start with friends working together. And there's certainly a lot of examples of families starting together, right? I think Five Guys Burgers was a whole family business basically that started off and then expanded, right? And so there actually are countless examples of siblings and families owned businesses that operate really well. It just depends on the relationship that you have with your family and if you can operate a business together. So, we have other older brothers that we could work on other things with, but maybe a business would not be that thing. It'd be different projects that we're able to work with them them on. Same with certain friends. Certain friends I can work on businesses with. Certain friends I just love being friends with. There's no reason for us to work on a business together. So it depends on your relationship. We have a certain level of trust. I think because we're twins, we know that we can be blunt with each other. We can have a disagreement or even a little fight about something, but that we will quickly get through it because we know that the well-being or the ultimate goal of whatever it is we're focusing on is the priority for both of us. And also we know little things like, oh wait, we're not going to screw each other because we actually care about maintaining the relationship, both professional and personal and family love type of thing, right? It's important for us, and so you can make it work, but obviously it's very subjective and you have to be sensitive to each different situation.
I would say that the number one thing, whether you're working with your siblings or your best friends or just a random person who became a co-founder, is alignment. And for us, it took, we've been working on things together since we were 19, so we could get to that alignment. Over time, we figured out how to work together, and we figured out that we have similar goals. So as long as you establish those goals and you establish a way to communicate and get decisions made, and you have sort of a mutual respect and understanding of what you're trying to build together, also respect for the fact that a company is hard and you have to be fully committed, then you can have that great co-founder relationship regardless of who it is. And it could be great to do it with a sibling if you have that trust. But there's some siblings that, we have some brothers that we probably wouldn't work with, even though we love them and we respect them as professionals and they do great work. We know that kind of co-founder relationship just for us wouldn't necessarily work with those siblings, but you just kind of have to be honest with yourself and test that too if you can.
And one thing I'll add is that even for Sergei and I, it's a constantly evolving thing. Just like if you have a co-founder that you start a business with, a business changes a year in or 6 months in, a year in, 3, 5 years. And so you need to constantly be in communication with your partners, even if it's your siblings, about the work. And that relationship can evolve, and it's okay for it to evolve because things change, people change, priorities change, your personal life affects it oftentimes as well. And so as long as Sergei said the expectations are set from the beginning and are continually reset if needed, you can avoid a lot of issues.
Okay, good. And so that's really good, and I definitely admire the kind of work that you guys have together and what you're able to accomplish together, and so that's really great, and I think a lot of people can learn from that. And so there's a lot of people out there also that just, I don't know, they live by this concept of what I do is all of who I am, and that I feel like that you guys can talk a little bit about that because you guys are more than just business partners. You guys are more than just entrepreneurs, more than just venture capitalists and adjunct professors. You are brothers, you're your family and friends, and more than that. So how do you speak to people who, I don't know, sometimes I guess they wrap their whole identity in their career, or they take all their pride in just being a businessman, or they don't know how to be a family person or a good friend or anymore. How do you speak to that?
Well, I would say, look, it's human nature to place labels on ourselves and others. It's almost imposed upon us because every time you meet somebody new, one of the first questions is, what do you do, right? And so you kind of have to have an answer for that. But I think for us anyways, as we've evolved, as we've gotten into different career paths, that elevator pitch, that story is always changing. And so I think it's okay to have a narrative. It's okay to have a label, even if that makes it easier for somebody to understand what your story is at a given time. But for people like us who have a bunch of skills, a bunch of interests, are jacks of all trades, and I think actually all of us have more than one thing that we're good at. So even people that are really narrow and have a very specific job or set of skills, or they assume they do, I would think would find out pretty quickly if they explored other areas that they have other skills. So I would say that as long as you keep an open mind to the fact that your label can constantly change and evolve, and whatever narrative you have for yourself isn't something that is strict, It's not something that's fixed or absolute. You can change it any day and start practicing a different narrative. I think if you get used to that mantra of defining yourself differently to other people, then you'll slowly pull away from any one label for yourself. So obviously that's subjective. It kind of starts with awareness and even a desire to do that. But for us now, I guess we work with a lot of early stage entrepreneurs, and that's generally where our time is spent and our discipline has gone. But I know in 6 months it could be completely different, and the story can be adjusted, and that's fine because you are more than just that one thing.
Yeah, it is. That's, I definitely would agree to that. It adjusts, and it's also what you want. Like, some people, they want to be good at one thing and recognized about one specific area and go deep, and that's all they want, and that's how they want to present themselves, and that's all they care about. For us, we've always had unique interests, and I mean, even when we started our podcast a year and a half ago, 6 months into it, we started writing for these different publications. We took over a podcast meetup where now we have about 850 members in the meetup that meets every couple of months. And so we started being seen as podcast experts, even though we had only been in the industry at that point for like 6 months. But we learned enough in a short period of time, and we got enough visibility in a short period of time where that was now a new expertise that we could put on our resume and talk about extensively and help others with extensively, and can continue if we want to do. So for us, that's part of what's unique and interesting about life, and especially life in New York City, is that you can take any interest that you have and do it at the highest maximum level and grow very, very quickly and become an expert. And we love doing that over and over again. We've both done music and acting and improv, and we've performed in some amazing places. And so we just like a lot of different stuff, and that's how we choose to represent ourselves and lead our lives.
I will say, though, for most people, it's not just the work. It's their personal relationship. It's the relationships. It's their families, friends. It's traveling. It's learning, whatever it is. And I think for those people, being aware of the fact that there are many different aspects to life that excite you, and giving yourself a break and realizing that it's okay to allocate your time on those things as well, even if they're not, let's say, money making, because the rest of the world judges us based on money, then I think that'll make things a little bit easier, because you realize, well, I'm not living for anybody else but myself. And so if I want to spend my time in certain areas because it makes me happy, then by all means, there's no reason to feel guilt about it.
Excuse me. All right, so there's a lot of people out there that feel just stuck. They just feel stuck at what they're doing, and they don't know how to get out. Any practical information you would offer to people, or just stuck in their education was picking a major, or people who are in the job market, they hate their jobs and they just want to get out?
Yeah, I think this one can be pretty quick and easy. Whenever we feel stuck or we want to change, the best thing you could do is get out of your current environment. More specifically, get out there and meet people that think differently than you. So if that means even going to a dance class, literally, because you don't usually go and you want to meet people that are interested in dance, or learning a new language, right? Taking some language classes and meeting people that want to absorb different cultures. Or if it's more on the professional side, go to networking events or industry-specific events in your city, and again, meet people within those fields. When you go out there and meet new people that have a different outlook on life, that look through the world through a different lens, you become aware of more opportunities. You start seeing things in a different light. And oftentimes having a few conversations with people on the outside, in other words, people from outside of your network, can reinvigorate you and awaken new motivations without you. They can point you in a new direction. Sometimes it can literally even translate into new opportunities if you meet somebody at the right time. So I would say that should be your first step. It's the best use of your time, and it's very easy to do. It can just take one evening or one evening a week consistently for a month, for example, for you to start seeing some benefits from that. So if you feel stuck, it's probably because you haven't exposed yourself to new people in a while. So just get out there, start meeting new folks, and you probably will feel unstuck even that day, but if not that day, relatively quickly after.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, you may not have people in your life, friends and family, or even significant other, who necessarily understand your dream or what you're trying to pursue. So if you can't get that at home or through your friends, you have to go out and find that elsewhere. Find those people that are doing something similar so that they can push you and motivate you by what they're doing, right? And they're going to provide a completely different perspective because they're going to help you embrace your ideas and push yourself further versus someone else who might see what you're doing as too risky, or it doesn't make sense, or it's not conventional. You don't need those naysayers in your life. You kind of need to nod and then move on, ignore that, and go talk to people that are actually going to encourage you.
All right. We got just a couple more questions, and we'll be out of here. The one before that, the last one, will be, what's one thing when it comes to what you value that your house stands on?
For me, it again goes back to relationships. I would say that is the one foundation that you have that is harder to break than anything else, and something that you can lean on when anything goes wrong. So if you're fortunate enough to have supportive family and friends, that is really what I think for all of us, what our house stands on. But again, if that's not something that you really have because of bad luck or because you haven't invested the time into it, it is something that can change and can change on any dime. I've developed best friendships at difficult times that kind of seem to come out of nowhere, but because I was open to meeting those new people, it literally changed things entirely for me. So I would say when in doubt, focus on relationships, because that can kind of be a guiding light for you.
For me, I would say that the number one principle, at least lately, that's been most helpful is to try to step out of constantly thinking about the future or dwelling in the past and focus on what am I getting done today toward where I want to be. Today is really the only day that you can control, and that actually helps you cope with the other days that are really high with exciting things happening and really low with sad things happening. And pretty much every couple of months there's one of those that occurs, and the only way you make through it is by focusing on the current day. And for me as well, part of that is, like Vadim said, always making time for people. Nothing really matters if you don't have people involved, whether it's your team, your customers, your friends. So if there's someone that comes to me for help or advice, or just wants to lend an ear, or wants me to lend an ear, I'm always going to make myself available, because in the end of the day, no matter what my personal goals are, I need to be able to make myself available to others and provide value for them, because that's paramount to everything else. Without them, nothing else really exists, whether it's a business or a career or anything else.
All right, cool. And the very last question of the day is the question of the day of this segment, where we just ask a random question to get to know you guys better. If you got to sing with anybody on a stage, who would it be?
Justin Timberlake. Always love JT. I think me and him can also break down a couple of moves on the dance floor too. Well, he'll have to choreograph it for me. But yeah, I think so. He's a great entertainer. Love him.
He's good. I think that next to him, though, we would look pretty nerdy. Or maybe not. Maybe we would. If we could choreograph.
I don't think so.
If we could choreograph with him, and we both have similar length beards, then maybe we could look okay. I would probably say Taylor Swift, just because in case she's single, she can write a song about me.
Yeah, definitely. After you break up.
I don't need a song from Taylor. No, thanks.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for being here with me on this episode. Everybody, be sure to subscribe again to the podcast to get content, and check us out on Instagram. And also follow their podcast at The Mentors. You can find that at The Mentors. That's thementors.co. Again, that's thementors.co. Thank you again, guys, for listening to this episode. And again, be sure to subscribe, and we will see you next time.
Thanks, Andre.